Well, in front of you is Ntethelelo Sibisi. I was born and grew up in KwaSwayimane. That is the rural areas just outside Pietermaritzburg. So my hometown is Pietermaritzburg. So when we said we want to go to town, we have to take a taxi. We have to take a taxi. It's about 55 to 57 kilometers away from home. That's where I was born and grew up. Then I attended my primary school at Inyanenga Primary School, which is also located in KwaSwayimane. It was just about a kilometer or 1.5 kilometers away from home. So we just used to walk to primary school. And I had a dream already in primary school, and that dream was sparked by one of the conversations we had, I remember, with my grandmother. We were at the forestry collecting the woods to make the fire. You know, in rural areas, we use fire to cook, we use fire to boil water for tea and stuff like that. So my grandmother asked me this question, and what do you want to become when you grow up or when you are old? And with confidence, I said, I want to become a doctor. And that is what was embedded in me growing up and going to high school. So after finishing the primary school, I then continued to high school, which was the high school that I attended was Sibongo Musa High School. It also in KwaSwayimane, but it's just that it's about 10 kilometers away from home. So we used to walk 10 kilometers to school and 10 kilometers from school to home. So that 20 kilometers of walk per day. So that's why I did my high school. Then I chose the subject that I chose when I get to grade 10, still influenced and aspired by the dream of becoming a doctor. I chose the science subject, which was the mathematics, physical science, life orientation, life science, geography, English, and the IsiZulu. So those were the 7 module subjects that I was then doing from grade 10 till grade 12, which were still aspired, influenced by my aspiration of becoming a doctor. But when I finished my matric, that dream changed. So during my matric, we had an open day at school, which was a career day where various institutions were invited to our school to do some presentation. I think that's when there was a turnaround in my life. It was around June when I was doing matric in 2011. Then I started the process of application. At that time, we were still filling the forms that are called CAO, which is a Central Application Office form. Then some of the careers or courses that I applied for was animal scientist, which is in agricultural space. I also applied for a doctor. Then I also applied for some engineering courses and also applied for a Bachelor of Science degree, which was mainly focusing in agriculture. Why that? Because when we're doing grade 11 to matric, the most common careers in rural area was that you need to become an agriculture so that you continue with the livestock of the grandmother and grandfather, so that you continue to utilize the land for farming. Then that's where my dream started to shift from my initial aspiration, but the subject was still relevant to agricultural course. But upon finishing matric, now I had to go to the university. When I get to university, first challenge number 1 was that I was on the waiting list. Because after you've completed your matric, now there's what we call a point system. So I was on the waiting list because I was only meeting a minimum points for the BSc degree. Then while I'm in the waiting list now, there's someone from the university, because I was going to university every day with my statement. Someone from the university, the people that works in admin, advised me to say, do a change of mind. Change of mind is where you are at the university, a facility, you go and get the form and you say, I want to change your mind from this course that I had applied via a CAO to this course that I invested. And that course that I applied for was called a BSc Extended Curriculum. What does it mean? It simply means that a BSc degree is a 3-year degree. But when you apply for a BSc Extended Curriculum, you're going to add another year. So some people, they will call it is a bridging course. at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, they call it foundation. So I applied for that, and guess what happened? I got accepted there while I was still in the waiting list. And eventually, I remained in the waiting list because there were some other learners who had higher points than me that were considered first in the BSc degree. So I started my first year at university by doing the extended curriculum, where I was still doing some core modules that are relevant to science, which was the maths, chemistry, physics, as well as biology. So those were 4 key modules that I was doing in my first year, first semester, which were a module that were seeking to prepare me for the mainstream first year in a BSc degree. Then when I was going to do now my first year in the actual degree, then I had then applied for the Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and Microbiology. So what does that entail? It entails that I had 2 majors. So I was majoring in biochemistry and also majoring in microbiology. So I had done some research to say, where would I work with the BSc degree? Then already there is, from the research I did, I knew that I would be able to work in food industry. I'll be able to work in hospital laboratory. I will also be able to work in the research institution as a laboratory technician. So I had already had that in mind, and because I was already fascinated by science, by the thing that I've seen in the lab, because lab was something new to me. It was a new environment. But when I started mixing chemicals, seeing the reaction and the outcome of the chemical, I was so fascinated by science. So I wanted to pursue the Bachelor of Science degree majoring in biochemistry and microbiology. It was a transition to move from high school to first year. Why do I call it? It was a transition phase because at the university, you attend the lecture. So number one, at university, you are on your own. There's no parent, there's no siblings, you are staying at rest, you are alone. So the future, in realistic, it's really in your hands. So it's up to you whether you make that future or you destroy that future. And the first year comes with a lot of work because the lecturers, they are lasting about 45 minutes. Sometimes if it is a double period, it's going to be 90 minutes. But after that, I was then exposed to an environment that I was not used to, which was new to me, where you have to go and see the laboratory. And in the laboratory, there were a lot of practicals that you will do on your own because they are teaching you already independence. So you'll be presented with the manual of the experiment that you need to execute, that has steps. Then after that, you need to generate the result and be able to interpret the result. So that was obviously a challenge because I'm coming from the rural areas. The school, the way I attended, we did not have a laboratory. So number one, now I need to be in the laboratory. Yes, you still have tutors that you can ask questions, they can guide you, but a lot of work you need to do coming from the self-learning by reading the manual and executing the steps, generating the result, and be able to interpret the result. Then you are expected to write and submit the report within 48 hours. So, and in submitting the report, it's not like at high school where you have to give it to the teacher at hand. There is a box there where you just go and drop your report. So you will not say you gave your report to someone if it is not being found in the box. So, and it was also you need to develop a certain level of discipline. If the submission time is every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, you need to submit every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Otherwise, you go there after 12, the script or the report will have been removed. And the explanation at university, they are not always entertained like at high school. So that's why when you ask me that question, what comes into my mind is a transition. And in that transition also, I needed to continue to work hard because at high school, I came up as one of the students who were always in the top 5, but university humbled me because first test that I wrote at university, I got 10% in mathematics, but I did not give up. But I had to understand now I'm in a different setup, and what is required from me is to be able to put more time in studying alone, not in front of the lecture. And what helped me to recover from there, I was then able to choose the correct people to associate myself with. Then I identified a study group. Then we started to study as a group and migrated at university first year to second year up to third year really improved thereafter. I did not experience the 10% failure that I experienced in my first test at university. So on my final year, now this is now the final year of the Bachelor of Science degree in Biochemistry and Microbiology, just the BSc degree. So there was a trip that was organized where we were taken to go and see the winery industry where they convert the grape into wine. So there, what stands out for me was to see the process, the fermentation process that happens, the bioreactors that process the wine into grape. That was very fascinating. And on the same day, because the trip, it was a twofold trip, we were also taken to see one of the research institution that has different laboratories. Because the university was trying to expose us, to say, because you are on your final year, this is what you should expect in terms of the work environment outside the university. Then after the trip, I sat and reflected, and I asked myself this question: am I ready to go to workplace? The answer to that was no, because from my reflection, I asked myself this question: do I have enough or sufficient knowledge to go and make impact in the work environment or in the workspace in terms of the microbiology? Because I've been studying this microbiology degree for 3 years. I've been studying this biochemistry degree for 3 years. Do I have sufficient knowledge that will make me successful in the workspace? Then I said, no. Then the question that I asked myself was, then what next then? Then I told myself, no, I need to continue studying. That's where now I persuaded an honors degree in biochemistry. Because remember, I have already doing 2 majors. I'm majoring in biochemistry and majoring in microbiology. Then I was doing very well in biochemistry compared to microbiology. So my marks and my grades were very high. Then I persuaded the honors degree in biochemistry. And what really informs that decision was that, yes, I'm in the final year of the degree, but I feel like I'm not ready to go to workspace because I do not have sufficient knowledge that will allow me to make impact in that environment. Then I persuaded my honors degree. From my honors degree, there was a lot of independence that was introduced because I was given a project to work on, a research project to do for 6 months with minimal supervision. In that 6 months, I had to plan my own time to go to the lab and do the experiment. I had to read up research about the methodology that I was going to use to run the experiment. So during my honors, as I mentioned that I did honors. So in honors, you are expected, and it's a requirement, not even an expectation, it's a requirement that as an honors student, you must do a project, a research-based project. So in that, we were a group of 10 students doing honors. Then there was 10 topics that were published of the projects that we have to choose from. So you had an option to choose 3, and out of your 3, you can be given the number 3 that you chose. You can be given a number 2, or you can be given a number 1. For me, I got the project that was my first option, which that project was mainly focusing on stem cells. So maybe let us explain briefly what are stem cells. So stem cells, these are your cells that you have under your skin that remain inactive up until they need to work. So why did I choose that? It was also informed by my background and also my upbringing experience, that we had an issue for the people that lives with diabetes, that they struggle to have, if they have a cut, they struggle to their wounds to get healed. Because when you have a diabetes, it affects the function of those cells. So my research project in honors was focusing on wound healing, to say what are the factors that influence the activation of these cells, so that when you cut yourself with a knife at home, you see after cutting yourself, your wound gonna go through different stages. Some of them you'll see you will be swollen. That is inflammation. That is an activation of those cells to come into this place that is affected. And after that, there's various steps. But what triggers me to choose that was because I wanted to make an impact using my scientific knowledge, using my scientific research to say, yes, we have a crisis in South Africa of diabetes, but one of the things that can be looked at to address the issue of wound healing to the people that have diabetes is 1, 2, and 3. So that's why I chose that project. Then going to masters, I continued with the same field of research in wound healing, but I had to broaden my scope now, looking at the factors like the enzymes that plays a role in activation of this cell to fast track the healing. Then I had to do a lot of experiment to prove that, and the outcome of that, I was happy that we were able to conclude that there is an enzyme that is called nitric oxidase that is responsible for the activation of these cells for them to perform a successful wound healing, to make sure that the wound goes through the whole it's about 3-4 steps of the total wound healing that takes place for the wound to be completely healed up until the formation of the scar. At that time, when I was doing my final year in my master's now, I started reflecting again and I said, yes, I am ready to go to the workspace, and I started even applying. When I was doing honors, I stopped applying. When I was doing my first year master's, I stopped. I didn't apply for any job because I was so committed in what I have started. Then in my final year of my master's, I started applying, and my prayer to God was that I prayed that by the time I finish this master's, there is a job that is waiting for me, so that I don't have this time where I finish the degree and I go and stay at home because I was going to be frustrated. And that's exactly what happened. The day I submitted my thesis at the university, I had already signed my contract with the current company that I'm working for. So I'm currently working at Nestle here in Mossel Bay. And my position is a food safety specialist. What does the position entails, and what are the key responsibilities that are for the food safety specialist? So I'll not mention all of them, but for the purpose of this interview, some of the key responsibilities of myself as a food safety specialist in the factory is, number one, is to ensure and manage the food safety management system. So it's a system that I need to make sure that it is in place. And once the system is in place, I need to manage it. But how do I achieve that? I achieve that by driving and updating the HACCP studies for the factory. Then the question is, what is the HACCP study? So in every food manufacturing companies, we call them FMCG, the companies that are making fast-moving consumable goods. So there's a requirement that you need to have the HACCP study. Then what is the HACCP? HACCP study, it is a tool that we use in manufacturing where we identify the hazards that are related to this process. And after identifying those hazards, we need to assess them. What are the chances that they will happen? Then after assessing them, we need then to define controls. How am I going to prevent that the food that I'm making here will not have a metal? How am I going to prevent that the food that I'm making here, the consumer, when they buy it, they will not find a cockroach, they will not find a piece of hair? So that is my responsibility to drive to make sure that we have an end-to-end process that covers all the hazard and controls that are in place. Number two, I also need to train the staff on the food safety requirement and also on the hygiene, because we deal with food. So hygiene is a priority for us. Number three, I also need, I conduct internal audits to make sure that our system is still relevant and it is still capable of achieving what is it intended for. Then also key thing that I also do, I also make sure that every day we produce the product. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that product that we produce, every day it needs to be shipped to the customer for consumption. My job and my role is to make sure that the product that leaves the factory gate, it is safe for human consumption. It means that when the consumer interact with the product, they will not get harm. They will not get dissatisfied that they find something that is not supposed to be there. So I make sure that the product is safe by ensuring that the controls that we have put in place, they are working, and the control that they've put in place, they are being adhered to make sure that the product is safe for human consumption. So that's what I do in a nutshell as a food safety. But what is it that it calls for to be a food safety specialist? There are some characteristics that you need to have as a food safety specialist, and one of them is you need to be a person of integrity. You need to make sure that because as a person of integrity, you are the eyes and the ears of the consumer that does not know the process. So I need to be the eye and the ear of that consumer. Number two, you need to be a person who's open-minded. You need to be open to read, because there's a lot of trends happening in the world. There is a lot of incidences that are happening in the world related to food. We just had a recent issue here in South Africa where there was a recall of the polony from the fridge. So if you are a person who does not read, you need to read and say, how can this issue happen in my area where I'm responsible for? If yes, how can I prevent it before it can happen? So you need to be a person who's open mind, always be reading and understanding the current trends happening around the world. And number three, you need to be a person who is passionate to impart positivity to people, because you need to go and train people. You need to go and coach people. When people they don't do things in a correct way, you need to go there and coach them. So if you're doing it like this is an impact of that. But that you will not do if you don't have passion. So passion must be a driving force of why you do what you want to do. So for me, that's what drives me every morning. Every morning when I wake up to go to work, it is mainly driven by passion. Passion to interact with the people. Passion to make sure that I need to give the South Africans or the people that eat our product a product that is safe. That is what we guarantee the people. So that when they consume our product, they will always be satisfied.